practice.
Very good, very good. Like I said, I really thought it was 11. Just 1 second for my questionnaire, and thank you for the interview. You're helping me and you're passing your knowledge.
No worries. My only request is if you could record this session and somehow send me the audio.
Okay, yes.
That's all. Because what I want to do is I put articles. I have my own website, and I like to put some more.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Let's do that.
Yeah, let's do it. So once you start, we can start recording, and then you can send me the audio once you finish with that.
Okay. Let's do that. Very good. I'm starting now. Okay, very good. Okay, so please, can you tell me your name again, please, sir?
Yep, Sarfraz Aaron.
Sarfraz, my name is Millie. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Okay, my first question to you will be, tell me a little bit about yourself.
So I'm a project manager for over 20 years, and I started this as a role after doing some really various technical jobs where I was a DBA, I was a network person, network engineer, I did support for many applications, and that gave me a really good technical background that made it possible for me to be a project manager. And then with the project management came the help of a technical background, so that I was able to manage some really good or complex projects where technically I was able to lead the team, have a good discussion. And by doing so, it helped me and helped the team to involve me as opposed to having me on the side as a project manager who is just going to push the pen and nothing else. So it helped me to make sure that I know what's going on, and at the same time the team felt comfortable with me, that I've got their back, and we were able to work on various complex projects. So as a project manager, then I moved into Agile, because Agile came up as a new thing almost 5 or 6 years ago. And then I got myself certified as Scrum Master many years before that, but not many organizations used Agile. So once I got the opportunity to be a project manager for Agile project, I quickly kind of put on my Agile hat and started leading the team as a Scrum Master. So for the last 4 or 5 years, I've been a Scrum Master, taking many Agile projects. A lot of coaching, a lot of mentoring, because a lot of people don't know what Agile is. So in that process as Scrum Master, I do a lot of coaching, mentoring, and helping projects which are all to do with transformation, digital transformation, which means taking the old applications from the legacy platform, mainframes, to the cloud. And I worked on Google Cloud, Microsoft Cloud, Amazon Cloud, and right now my current job is also working for an organization where we're transforming the legacy application to the cloud. So this is my kind of quick summary in terms of where I started and where I am right now.
Okay, yes. And the second question was exactly that, and I think you answered a little bit. What type of project have you worked on, and what was your role in this project? So you just answered a little bit. Do you want to say a little bit more about it?
Yep.
What you're doing, and then your role?
Yep. So the project would say the role would say you're a project manager. If I was a project manager, and you would do a lot more than project manager, you would do a lot of facilitating, you'll do a lot of coaching, you'll do a lot of hand-holding, you'll do a lot of things like that. And at the same time, your focus is always on deliverables, making sure the team is connected, their communication is clear, and I have communicated exactly what my expectations are. We set the foundation from the get-go, and you could stick to that. And at the same time, the focus is to make sure the team feels one, not multiple or silo approach. And that's the project manager. But then when you move into Scrum Master role, you're a facilitator, you're a servant leader. That means you don't have any authority to do anything other than facilitating, other than setting the Scrum ceremonies. And in doing so, I realized I could jump in straight, follow the textbook approach, and that doesn't work. What you do is you actually realize you analyze the situation, what kind of team you are working with, what kind of environment you're working in. Because what happens is one or the other. The team says, we're not agile, but the environment is not agile. It takes so long for some things to be approved when the agile says it's only 2 weeks for the sprint to take place. So that doesn't work. The other is the environment is agile, but the team is not comfortable with agile principle, don't know what that means. And they have certain myths about agile. You don't do documentation, for example. Typical, you don't do documentation. You do. So as a Scrum Master role, you have to do a lot of coaching, mentoring, again, facilitating and making sure the team understands how Agile works, how it can help. And once you understand that, the next part is making the team work as a unit again, as a Scrum team, especially in Agile, because you only have 2 weeks to prove something, the kind of work you completed, to the product owner or anyone else. So the team has to work as one unit, and there is no us and them. So you spend a lot of time on coaching and mentoring and making sure they understand that. And once they understood that they're working as a team, that they should be able to be cross-functional, help each other out, then they'll get into this phase where they actually work together as a team and they start delivering. That's why I say as Scrum Master, I really don't expect anything until at least 3 to 4 sprints down the line. That's when I realize what kind of team there are and what kind of challenges they face. And then I help out in that as a coach, as a mentor, as a Scrum Master, whatever it takes to make sure everybody's on the same page.
Wow, beautiful answer. Which is better, according to you, traditional waterfall method or the agile method?
So it depends on what you do. So, for example, if you say to me, I want to move these files, or I want to take this application, very standard, nothing great, into this environment, I don't need to show anything. It just needs to be done. I would use waterfall. You put a project plan together. You have a distinct phase of analysis, design, build, etc. So I'll do that. I don't want to have an agile on something. I don't want to use a hammer to kill a fly, for example. Mm-hmm. I will use agile where someone says, I don't know what I want. I have an idea. So you know what? Let me do an agile to show you every 2 weeks what I'm doing or what are we doing, so that you can see. And you can guide us to say, no, a little bit this color, no, a little bit right. So that way we'll get to the right destination. As opposed to traditional, I can give you a blue car only for you to say, give me a green car. So that doesn't work. So that's why I'll have to assess where the project is going to and who am I working for. So I will help that in that decision making as well.
Wonderful. What metrics do you use in measuring your agile or your Scrum team?
So you need to do at least 3 to 4 sprints down the line. To understand how many, for example, the sprint in 2 weeks, how many stories they can complete. Each story has a story point, which again is the biggest challenge. People don't understand what story point is. They think it's hours, is it days, is it weeks? And you say none of the above. It's a relative estimate. So you do a lot of mentoring in terms of what is the story point, so that so the team can start estimating correctly. So you need 3 to 4 sprints, which is almost 8 weeks, to let them estimate correctly and therefore finish what they said they can finish in 2 weeks. So that will give me the velocity. So once I know the velocity, how many story points they can complete in a sprint, then I can cut the cake into those number of slices. And then we can give them an estimate to say, well, whatever we have in the backlog, if I was to estimate T-shirt sizes like large, medium, small, I can give them a high-level estimate in terms of how long will this project take. Obviously, the backlog is open. You can put as many things as you want or take them out. But I would give them an estimate after a 3 to 4 sprint with the velocity metric. At the same time, the performance for the team. I'll do a lot of coaching. So people will ask me, how long will it take? Well, I'll say, when the backlog is empty, the project is done. And that, I can only give you high level once I know the velocity. And the velocity doesn't come until I have the team understand that they estimate right and they take on the work, but they can finish. So it is all these combined metrics that will help the team to be successful at the end of the day.
Wow, very smart answer. All right. Tell me about some of the challenges you face on your projects.
So the first challenge, as I mentioned quite a few times now, is the team. Mm-hmm. A lot of time don't understand Agile, or the management don't understand what is Agile. So they tend to do a hybrid approach, which is give me a project plan and then give me and do sprints. So what happens is everybody does these rituals of daily stand-ups, and sometimes they call it daily stand-up and they do it for an hour and a half. So that's not a daily stand-up. A daily stand-up is 15-minute touch point. Hey, what did you do yesterday? What you going to do today? Any blockers? And when they start answering questions, detailed design discussions on a stand-up, they got it wrong. Second, the management says, give me a project plan, when you're going to do design, when you're going to do the UAT, when you're going to do that. So you say, well, there is no UAT and there's no testing, it's all in one. It's a 2 weeks of everything that you do in a waterfall tradition, which is, analysis, design, build, test, deploy. It's all squeezed into 2 weeks. You do the whole thing in 2 weeks. Testing, development. You don't have phases. What happens is you do development and then the QA will say, I need you to test that now. So they take another 2 weeks to do that. And the point is you say, no, you don't do development then testing. The whole thing is within 2 weeks. Oh, I can't do that, it's too much. Then you reduce the number of workload. You reduce the number of stories. Well, the stories take too much. Okay, you reduce the stories to smaller stories. So you see, it all depends on how the stories are broken down, how they are articulated, and how much estimate is against that. All that has to be cleaned up before the team can actually do the right thing. If the estimates are wrong, if the story is too big, and the timelines are too short, the whole thing is a disaster. So you have to start from the beginning with the basics, the mindset. Understand Agile, understand team dynamics, then you move forward step by step.
Very good. You talked about it from the beginning about the understanding of the role of the Scrum Master and the job. So I think we can skip that question because you answered very nicely. So other question, what is the largest number of Scrum team you have worked with at the same time?
So I had about 4 projects, 4 different teams, and scattered across the globe. So that's the
wow.
challenge you have. You have a challenge with that. Challenges could be, you got to find the time which works for everybody. Which means if my team is based in India, I have to have the daily stand up early in the morning, not the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
So if I have a team in India, if I start my meeting at 9, it's already 6:30 for them or something like that in the evening. And so you have only an hour and a half for all the teams, which are all based in India. So you have a very busy morning, but then very easy or empty afternoons. And so having a sprint planning, having a refinement session in that morning is so hard. But you make concessions. You come up with a schedule that says, how do I accommodate more than one team for the full ceremonies for Scrum? That means stand-up, planning, refinement, demo, retrospective. So that's what happened when I had four teams doing that. So I focused more on those that were weak, who needed more coaching, so they understand. The one that was really kind of coached and understood, I spent less time. It was very quick with them, but I spent more time on my weaker ones, so that they understood what is a daily stand-up, as opposed to start giving updates and detailed discussions. I was shutting them down, saying, no, this is not about a detailed discussion, it's a touch point. So yeah, so that's the kind of challenges you have, and having more than one team is going to be there no matter how good you are. Yeah.
Very, very good. How do you start working with a new Scrum and Agile team? So the beginners, what do you lay out the foundation?
Yeah, so I talked about that already. So when you have people in front of you who are not beginners, who say they are expert, actually they are beginners in your mind. Because what happens is they say, oh, I know Agile. And then the first thing they do is that, I'm working on a ticket that is, somebody asked me to do a report, I'm working on that. And you say, well, why would you do that? Is that a story? No, it's just somebody asked me to do. So you know straight away that they don't know Agile. They cannot take any work which is outside the sprint. Whatever you said you're going to do, you need to do that. So so a lot of people will say, oh, I'm a certified Scrum Master. Great, but they don't know the practical day-to-day, what they need to do. So once I finish, one person will finish that story and they will sit and say, I've got nothing to do. The idea isn't about you and nobody. The idea is you're going to work with everybody. So you spend a lot of time working with them. You say this is a team dynamic, one team, work with each other, help each other, and don't sit there and wait for each other to say, I am stuck, ask them. So you spend a lot of time coaching the team, making sure they understand. So yeah, this is always going to be a challenge for a new team or somebody who says I'm good. Until you as a Scrum Master have understood how much they do know of Scrum and Agile principle and what the environment is all about. Then you can relax. Until then, you just have to continue doing that. Yeah.
Super.
Yeah.
Super. You talked a little bit also about it. How will you teach, but you didn't say exactly how you would do it. How will you teach your team to split or slide the story when it's too big?
Yeah, so first of all, they need to understand what are the basics of Scrum. What is an epic? What is a story? So you start with that. So once you understood what is an epic, what is a story, what is a setback, then you say, now this story that you talk about, is it an epic? Is it a story? So you help them to reduce the stories to a point where they actually are stories, and then you spend the next hour or whatever telling them how to estimate them. So you always trying to get them out of this kind of thinking that, oh yeah, this is a story, when in fact that's an epic. And what happens is when they say, no, this is a story, the reason why you can do 3 to 4 sprints is because you'll see that they won't be able to finish that story. They'll say, oh, I'm still working on it, and it's almost 8th day. And you think, well, it's going to finish in 2 days, so why are you still working on one story? And they say, oh, it's so big, it's so complicated. So then you realize, okay, we need to ask more questions to the product owner, to the team leads, and make sure you reduce it to the point, this is a small nugget. You can finish the work within a 2-week sprint.
Very good. And this other question goes with what you're just saying exactly. So how do you now qualify a user story well written? This one is. So
I start off by saying, what's the definition of done? What is the fundamental of story writing? So there's a very good articles out there about, what is a good story, and there's an acronym which I can't remember. So you ask a simple question, Scrum Master. When you see a story in front of you as a developer, do you understand what you need to do to develop it, to build it, to create it? And they're going to say, yep, it's very simple. All right. QA, tester, do you understand what you need to do to test this story so that you can sign up? Yes, I do. So once they give me those 2 answers, I know it's a good story. So there should be an acceptance criteria. There should be a very clear. If they say I don't know how to test it, I don't know what the definition of done is. How do I know it's done when it's done? Then you need to ask the question to the team lead, to the PO, to say, hey, you need to clarify for them. When you say validate password, do you mean just alphanumeric, or should there be something else? So they have to ask those questions, and not when it's about to be tested and say, I've tested it, but I'm not sure if that's all you want me to do. That should be asked before you start, at the time of story writing or refinement. Yeah.
Very good. You just answered also the next question, so I'm going to go to the other one. How do you work with the product owner?
So they are the one who own the product backlog. So as long as they know that's their product backlog, adding stories can be added by anybody. But they are the one who needs to understand what is in the product backlog and what the stories are all about, so that they can refine it to a point where developer knows how to build it and tester knows how to test it. So you work with the product owner because they have a vision of what the product should look like at the end of the day. And you also make sure that they know that the product owner, Scrum Master, and the team itself are the 3 kind of different roles that make up the whole agile. And so the PO has to understand what their responsibilities are, what the Scrum Master has to understand what their responsibility is. And then you can say that, hey, when you are ready, you need to be available for a refinement session. Hey, you need to be on my daily stand-up so that people can ask questions. So you work really, really close with product owner, and product owner has to keep putting new stories in the backlog, and then you as Scrum Master needs to keep making sure the team is pulling all those stories into the next sprint, and they're all prioritized, etc., and complete, etc., etc. And then when they do demo, the product owner must say, okay, and they must give them feedback. You can't just sit quietly and say, okay, I'm done, and then there's no feedback. So you always tell the product owner that you must give them feedback. They're going the right way, yes. What would you like to see them different? And then they incorporate that. So I spend a lot of time on my retrospective trying to get them talking and say, this is not about Scrum Master talking, it's all about you. So what do you want to see? What is the, I always tell with the good news, what is the, what you're happy about? What is the thing that you said you're proud of in the last sprint? And they say, oh, we worked really well, we were talking, we were doing that. And then you say, well, what do you want to improve upon? They say, well, it'd be nice if you know what everyone's doing, or they could attend the daily stand-up and all that kind of stuff. So you make a note of that, and then you make sure that people actually, you as a Scrum Master, assign somebody, or yourself can do that. And then you come back and say, okay, in the next retrospective, hey, I took action, I did something about it, here's the feedback. And then I close it. If it's not closed, it continues in the next retrospective. So whatever they say in the retrospective is not a hearsay. It's actually, you deal with it. And therefore the team becomes more engaged, and they say, you know what, if I want something done, change, I must speak up in my retrospective. And I actually challenge them. I make them speak. I don't let them sit there quietly. In my retro, in my planning, I make them talk so that they know they're part of the team.
So you would say that's the way you manage retrospective, by making people talk, open up, and say what they want to say. what
absolutely
happened.
In the retrospective, in the refinement session, because what happens is they always forget that this is they always let the one person speak, and this is that quietly. And then I said, no, this is all by you, because you're going to take a story. This person is going to give you this story. They might say it's only 3 story points, and you don't speak up, and then you are working for 5 or whole sprint. Then that's not how it's supposed to work, and you must speak up. Okay. So you make them realize if you don't, this is the consequences, and then if you do, this is good job, good thing. So then they become aware that I need to do that.
Get better. And you were talking also about that in the beginning, but basically, how do you teach them to estimate story points? You were talking about time and evaluation, but what do you tell them to help them estimate?
So you get them. So you start with the basics that the Fibonacci, the 1, 2, 3, 5, 8 is what you're supposed to estimate in, and it's all relative. So if you know what is 1, what does it take to do a 1 story point? They might say, well, that's just to write a simple code that says "Hello World" and I can test it within 1 story point. Okay, that's your base, that's your benchmark. So when you say 5, you know that that's 3 times, 5 times more complex. And so I never let them go more than 5 story points for any story within a 2-week sprint. Second thing I do is that on my website I talk about as well. I actually give them to say, if you don't understand, and it's always the case, is to say, how about we assume that 1 story point equals 1 day? How about that we just assume that? And then when I do that, they actually get it, and they actually start estimating a little bit easier. But I try to wean them off and say, no, that's just to get you going. Now we need to use 1, 2, 3, 5 Fibonacci. So what happens is that I never wean them off. Why? Because they don't know, they never get out of that cycle. But my job is to let them know what they should be doing, but then I get the job done by just saying, okay, let's just assume that 1 story point equals 1 day. And then they just kind of get it right. And I try to give them the estimate between 1, 2, 3, 5. I don't say 4. I don't let them do, for example, 7. I say, no, let's stick to the numbers 1, 2, 3, 5, and you'll get the gist of it. Yeah.
You also naturally answer a lot of questions, but you talked about what are the mistakes, you talked a little bit about it, the anti-patterns you have seen in teams doing, maybe one mistake that you see often.
It's us and them. The biggest mistake they have is that it's always us and them. Always a developer's job, always it's a tester's job, always blah. And you're saying, well, did you reach out to the QA? And the QA is in the team. And so they talk like this. It's up to the QA to test the story and let me know. And then you say, okay, let's just stop there. The QA person, that's you, right? Yes, that's me. So I said to them, now say that again. I mention the person's name and say, hey, how are you testing this story that I just sent it to you? And then you talk to each other like that. So they always assume that they're talking to me as a Scrum Master, and I'm telling me, always the QA needs to do this next. And I'm saying, no, don't tell me. Talk to the QA who's on the call. Refer to them, and then talk to each other while we can hear you talk in dialogue. So that's the biggest kind of team problem that takes a lot of time, and sometimes they never get out of it, but you have to keep emphasizing the team dynamics.
Very good.
That's just one. There's so many, but that's just one, the biggest thing I can think of.
What are, in that same manner, just if you remember example, the common complaints you get from the teams? Common.
I think they would just feel, sometimes I feel sorry for the team because they get pushed into this agile box from teams, and they're not kind of they're not really trained for that, right? So I always say to them, look, you need to get training for this. You need to do all that kind of stuff. So I always give them encouragement to get yourself trained, and then I do a lot of spending one-on-one with them, and so they always feel they get pushed, and sometimes they don't speak up, and they don't speak up because that's just a culture. So you as a Scrum Master identify that, and you try to encourage and overcome their difficulties or their blockers by giving them the assurance that, look, you can talk to me and I'm going to help you, but talking to your manager not to put you in too many projects or give you time off, whatever it takes. So you do that,
And you, as a Scrum Master, what would you say your greatest skills is?
So you have to be really technically sound, and I talk about this in my course as effective Scrum Master. You need to be technically sound and a people's person, people management, people skills. You have to have the technical ability for them to take you seriously. So when they talk about, the database table is just not connected, or the storage was not enough, and so you have to jump in and say, well, what does it mean? And then you ask the questions and you help them to understand what they're saying. And number two is the people management. You always have to body language. You have to read them. Like I said, people will not speak up and say, hey, I'm really tired, or I don't understand what they asked me to do, but I'm just doing it and I'm struggling. So you have to understand before they even ask you. And you have to put up like a presentation or a one-on-one coach. And once you've done it, you'll realize how happy they are, how appreciative they are. So it is two things together. A lot of people say, well, I don't have a technical background. But that's okay. But I'm saying is to be an effective Scrum Master, you need to have technical ability, not that you can develop. I don't have to develop, but technical ability with the people management. These are two main thing that will help you to be an effective Scrum Master.
Wow, good answer. And how do you talked about it already, so I think I'm not going to ask the question, because you talk about ensuring that your team is not overcommitted in the sprint, and you talked a little bit about it. Do you want to add anything about that?
They always in the beginning they'll say, yep, we can do that. Yep. They're load of the sprint with so many stories, and you ask yourself, oh my God, we have 5 people team, and they might have estimated to maybe 80 story points, whatever method we use. And I'm always saying, well, I'm not going to say anything. I just say, okay, let's start. And then we start, and then we want to finish 20 story points. And then you say, well, you said 80, or you still got 60 to go. And so then they roll over to next sprint, and then you start again, and they do, 35. So it's just that they don't know. And you always want to say to them, start small, build up. What they do is they jump right in the deep end, and then they struggle and lose hope. So as a Scrum Master, you have to stop that situation. Because if the team loses their confidence, don't understand, on top of that, this so difficult process, and then on top of that, everybody's asking me every day, hey, what did you do? What did you do? So you need to avoid that negativity and start with a positive, with a build-up of knowledge and build-up of confidence. That's what's going to get you to the end of the day. Not
Same context. And how do you have them prioritize? So you also ask them question on the complexity of the task, but how do you help them put one story before another one, or one task before another one?
And so that I need to have a technical lead from the developer side, or somebody who steps up. And I'm always encouraging people to, you don't have to be one dev lead. Anybody can be a lead. Remember, you're all professional. You're all number one cross-functional team members. And sometimes I actually swap them out. If somebody is struggling, I swap them out. I say, look, it's not your fault. You happen to be asked of something that you're not capable of, not your fault. So I get them swapped out with somebody who knows, because we only have 2 weeks to do that. So you just have to understand that anybody can speak, and they're all able to say something. What happens is just a culture of people that you work with, that they don't speak up. And so you have to encourage that everybody is allowed to speak up, and I'm here to facilitate that. Nobody should shut down. So what happens is they will get shut down by somebody, which happens elsewhere, but in my team, when that happens, I stop it. I say, no, that's not allowed. You speak up. So you facilitate. So if you're a Scrum Master by the book, you probably will get by, but you won't be effective. You need to be effective. You need to do that kind of stuff. Yeah.
And what would you say the difference is between an Agile coach and a Scrum Master?
It's a very overlapping role, to be honest. Like I said, if I stick to my Scrum Master role, I will just be doing, okay, everybody, here's a schedule, run with it, and let me know if you need me. And you don't do anything else. And people say, well, what do you do? What's your role? What do you do other than Scrum ceremonies? And so I don't do that. I actually keep my finger on the pulse, how the team is doing. And then I ping one-on-one people. How's it going? What's it mean? And when the demo happens, or when the retro happens, I encourage them with a lot of questions, poking questions, and then they have to think about it. I make them do presentation. So what happens is They just come to demo and they say, okay, today we're going to demo that. I say, no. Go back, start again. I don't know who you are. You're telling me a demo. What's the demo about today? So I make them as if they're professional delivering to public audience. And so I get them that kind of environment thinking, make them do presentation and do a recap. And so they start with nothing, but by the time they finish with me, they are very professional in their presentation. They do recap. It's amazing how they deliver. But in the beginning, it's just jump in and no idea, don't know who the audience is. And because I have a little bit of technical understanding, I keep asking questions. So when you say the data was moved, who moved it? How did you move it? And what is the mechanism to move data from the mainframe to the cloud? Is that encrypted, or how do you do that? And so they'll have to answer those questions. So as a Scrum Master, if you don't know, you will just be baffled by this jargon. So because, as I said, you need to be technical and people management. That's why it comes handy. Yes.
Very good answer. And what are you looking for in your next job opportunity?
So I've been working where I've been mentoring or being a Scrum Master for many Scrum teams, and what happens is that when I see somebody coming in half good at what they do, and then they come out, when they finish with me, they're professional, they're agile, the ability is amazing, and they're able to go elsewhere and perform the same thing. I feel great. And my next thing is that if I can, what happens if we can get a really mature agile team assigned to me? I'm just thinking, I haven't had that opportunity yet. For example, the Googles and the Netflix, where they do deployment every day, because their sprints are not 2 weeks, they're very quick, they're a quick turnaround. So I haven't worked in an environment where it is so mature that everybody knows what to do. The environment is agile. The people are agile minded. And I haven't worked in that environment yet, but I would like to be in that environment one day. Where it's not a 2-week deployment. It's not 2 weeks of just sprint finish. It's actually 2 weeks of deployment of actual production into a production environment. And Google's do that. Netflix do that. They do it 10 in the morning. Why? Because it's cloud. Google Cloud or Microsoft Cloud. They allow you to do that. So that hasn't happened yet. I've always worked with the teams where they do lots of sprints, for a 6 months, 7 months. Then we get into this change management, approvals, then it gets deployed. So it almost follows the agile and then goes into waterfall for deployments, right?
Have you ever had any experience in working in a safe environment?
So this where I'm working now, they are safe, kind of trained. I'm also safe Scrum Master as well. Like I said, people are very excited about agile, but to be agile minded and be without the safe, finish things on time and within how it's supposed to be is already challenging. To add safe on top of that, which is going to be difficult, because that means you're having I'm working in the program right now where the program is managing multiple Scrum teams into a kind of program level release. But the actual safe roles, like a release train engineer, all these things don't exist. And that can only happen in an organization that is mature in agile. So even though people say we are agile, you find they're not. So having a safe in that environment is beyond belief. You can't have that. You have to get the basics first. But yes, safe is there to allow enterprise level agile deployment. But the problem is nobody is able to understand or is
practical.
In the practical terms. So yes, I know what to do, but then what's the point when people don't know how to run when they can't even walk? So you start with the beginning. So I do know. But what's the point when we can't deliver? So I always say safe is great. I am safe Scrum Master SSM, but I haven't used that anyway yet, because Scrum is just about picking up. I can't imagine safe being the next thing already in there. Yeah.
Beautiful. Two more questions before we close, but I'm very enjoying it. Have you ever participated in a program increment planning session?
Yeah, so that's why the SAFE is kicked in there. And you're supposed to plan for 3 months in advance or 1 quarter advance. And you're supposed to have a huge dependency board that says, hey, if you don't Scrum Team 1, if you don't finish design or feature 1, Scrum Team 2 cannot start there, blah, blah, blah. So we did it, but it was just an exercise, just a 2-day exercise. but what we got out of it was nothing. So I have participated, but never got the actual effective results out of it. And so that's why I go back to my other question. Other answer is that it is there. People say it, do it, but the actual doing and implementation and actually being effective doesn't exist because people don't know. They can hardly grasp agile and sprint and all that. How are they going to grasp program increment and safe and at a program level? I'm working in a program environment right now. It doesn't work. We don't have an overall delivery kind of a dependency board.
I understand.
That's the first thing you need to do. So you can put up in an Excel, which doesn't work because you need to have a different tool to see a high level bird's eye view. And then people know that, hey, if I slip by 2 weeks, by one sprint, this will be impacted. So it is great in theory, but not in practical terms yet.
Very good. And you already talked about the challenges, so I'm not going to ask you more. Last question, how do you manage conflicts in a team?
Again, people management, right? So when I said you need to be people management, you're going to have people saying, it's a developer's fault or their fault. And so I always, first of all, make them realize that in a Scrum team, you're working as a team. So there is no other than. You don't work as an individual, you work as a team unit. And so you make them understand that you may have come from an environment which is all about keeping yourself covered and nobody else don't care. I make sure they understand that no, you work together. So if someone is falling down, you help them out, help them, pick them up, and vice versa. So you make that kind of clear to them. Again, it's all coaching, it's all mentoring. What are the team dynamics? Team dynamics when you put people together, a bunch of people together, you form the team. So there are 5 stages of team dynamics. I always explain that to my team. You put them together, they are formed. That's a forming stage. So you put them together. I don't know who you are, but we're going to work together. Then we do the storming stage, which is I'm working with you, but I don't like you, and you don't like me, and they do that kind of fighting, and that's what I get from them. They're fighting, but then from the storming, they go into norming. Now the norming stage is where I know how you work, and I'm realizing that you're my team, and I'm with you, and and I always say, if you guys fail, I fail. If we succeed, we all succeed. So once you understand that principle, that's norming. They actually work really well. But then the next stage is the performing, where they are just helping each other out. They are just amazing flying. And then the last one is a journey when you kick them out and say, okay, thank you so much. So I understand these stages of a team build, and I follow them through depending on where they are when I get them as a Scrum Master. And so that's how your conflicts are not there, or if they are there, you take them from this staging, from this kind of forming team phases, and then you take them to the next level.
Wonderful. Beautiful. It was a wonderful time with you. I thank you very much for your time, Sarfraz, and hopefully one day I'll be as good as you are.
You're very good. You asked very good questions. So why don't you connect with me on the LinkedIn and check out my howtoscrum.com website. I put a lot of videos there. I put a lot of things in there. Just check out. And so if you have any other questions, let me know.
Thank you.
And please send me the video because I would like to take this opportunity to maybe put out there something for my material as well.
Very good. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you. Take care. Bye.
Bye.